Former State Senator Reuven Carlyle is back with us this legislative session to break down what is happening in Olympia. Reuven, great to see you.
Nice to see you.
I was telling you earlier, I'm usually on the force, so I don't get a chance to chat with you. This is a nice treat.
It is. It's fun.
Okay, so let's talk about four things that are happening in the legislative session lawmakers are currently discussing. Let's start with face masks.
Yeah.
Lawmakers pushing forward rather quickly with two bills that would eliminate face masks for police and ICE agents. If they pass that, how would that affect everyday Washingtonians?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of momentum around this.
Yeah.
Governor Ferguson called for the passage of this bill in his State of the State address. There's a lot of momentum in the legislature. It's based upon a policy out of California in which they're really trying to get a lack of, a clarity of who ICE officers are and sort of avoid that anonymity. It is an open question about whether it's legal. There's questions, of course, in the courts. But ultimately, Seattle police and others, they wear their name tags and they don't wear masks. And so I think people really want to ensure that there's openness and transparency.
What do you see as the pros and cons, and do you see any red flags for public safety?
I think ultimately there's a strong argument for it, right? That the civil rights and civil liberties require openness and transparency, and our law enforcement should, really be accessible. At the same time, opponents of it feel like it opens law enforcement and ICE officials to the possibility of doxing and other abuse and vulnerabilities for them just doing what they consider their job. So you really can see the tension around a policy like this, but there is some real momentum for this bill.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about Senate Bill 5973, and that would lower the signatures needed to qualify an initiative to 1,000. It would also ban for paying people per signature. Is that going to help grassroots efforts, or is it going to just be harder to get things on the ballot?
Yeah, it's a tough one, because I'll tell you straight up that, people of Washington love their initiatives. They believe in it. They consider direct democracy a fabulous part of our system of state government. Making it more difficult for initiatives to qualify for the ballot in terms of cost and in terms of signature requirements, eliminating paid signature gatherers, is really in some ways targeted at Brian Haywood, who's sort of leading the initiative effort right now. The irony, I think, for Democrats is that in Republican states, they're opposed to efforts to do that. So there's an effort here in Washington to make it more difficult, and that's a little bit philosophically inconsistent. So I think that the people of Washington really treasure their initiatives, and anything that makes it difficult, has a challenging haul. But there is some momentum around this bill as well.
Something else that has gotten a lot of traction and has people talking is a girls' sports initiative. It's going to head straight to voters to protect girls' sports from transgender competitors. Where exactly does that thing stand right now? Yeah,
super hot button issue, as you can imagine. But Brian Haywood, again, did get the signatures required for that. It did go to the legislature. The legislature this week said that they are not going to consider the bill. They're not going to hear the referendum, and so it'll go straight to the ballot, and the people of Washington will have the ability to decide this directly. I mean, that's one of those direct democracy, hot button social issues that sometimes the legislature often punts on, and so it's going to go straight to the ballot.
Yeah, ultimately voters will decide.
That's right.
And finally, Governor Bob Ferguson has a 9.9% income tax for those earning over $1 million. Now, this is also a very hot button issue, has a lot of people talking, has support from Democratic leaders, but it's going to face some legal hurdles, right? And can you kind of explain why?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Millionaire's income tax is a proposal from the governor, from the State Senate Majority Leader Jamie Peterson. It does have some momentum in there, but there's real challenges. First of all, there's no actual text or language out yet. That'll be out any day now. And so once people get to see the details, they can sort of weigh in a little bit more. The challenge, I think, ultimately is that there is an issue of the courts, and it will likely go to the courts. And it also could be appealed to the voters directly. So it's still got to go through those couple of hurdles, most likely. So if it does pass and makes it all the way through that, it wouldn't take effect for a couple of years. So super hot button because of Washington, one of the few states without an income tax, and a lot of the people, public, of course, will have a strongly held views about that issue.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you about as well. Is it a slippery slope towards an income tax for everyone eventually.
Yeah, well, the Republicans argue that it certainly is. It would be lowered very quickly from millionaires. I think the polls suggest there's a lot of support if it is millionaires or above, and that support slips very dramatically if it's millionaires or less. So we'll have to see how it plans out, but there's no question it's a hot button issue.
Reuven Carlyle, great to see you. It's always so wonderful to chat with you and get an insight into what's happening in Olympia. So we'll see you next week again.
Thanks, as always.
As the legislative session continues. Thank you.